Greetings and salutations, everybody, and welcome to I-86 After Dark. I am your host, Buffalo Bob, and I am here with the one and only Great Dame, a.k.a. Damian Mikkelson. How are you doing, brother?
I'm doing good. The Islanders are on right now. I got that in the background. It's a 3-3 game, so hope we can get at least a point out of this game against a really hot Columbus team right now.
Yeah, that's for certainty. But you know what? We got a special treat for you guys tonight because we're going to be dealing with an OG Islander. Man, those are harder to find than the Loch Ness Monster these days. I mean, goddamn. But not just anybody in specific. He not only played for the original Islanders, he was also on the original Washington Capitals team. And of course, I am talking about the one and only Bill Mikkelson. Bill, how the hell are you?
I'm great. Thank you. Great to be on your show.
Yeah, absolutely. And we were talking before a little bit, and you told us that you watched a little bit of last week's episode or this week's episode, and I was just like bundled up with joy.
Yeah. Well, good. Yeah. No, I enjoyed them.
Yeah.
I like your format, and I like the way you guys, address topics and everything. It's certainly freewheeling. Let's put it that way.
Well, I definitely appreciate the kind words, Bill, for certain. But how have you been lately?
Just great. Just great. Just back from Europe. I was in Switzerland and Milan for a few of the Olympic Games, and great experience. I'm still adjusting time limit or the time change issue. I'm not, if I seem a little groggy at times, it's because I am. It's a big adjustment, and I guess at my age now, I don't adjust as well as I used to.
Right.
I'm not a great sleeper anyway, and coming back to the time change has not been easy. Even though I've been back for a week now, I'm still suffering.
Right. I know that feeling because I actually did that about 9 months ago. My wife and I went on a cruise in Alaska, but they're like 4 hours ahead from the Pacific Standard Time, so it was like 2 p.m. over there as to compare to like on the West Coast of like Seattle or Los Angeles. It's like 5 p.m. over there, so
Yeah.
it's a bit of a concept of a time change, but I totally understand it.
Yeah. It's 8 hours difference from here to Milan. Like from Calgary, it's 6 hours for you guys, so not quite as bad.
Oh wow, look at that. So you and I have a little bit of a sleep scheduling, don't we, Bill?
Yeah. Mine is not improving with age either. In fact, it's getting worse. I didn't have this much trouble. I have less problem going east to Europe, but coming back is really a problem. But I'm retired now, so who cares?
Right.
It doesn't matter. So I don't sleep well, so what?
Exactly. So, I mean, it is what it is, but who knows at this point? So, I guess, from here on out, Bill, I guess the $1,000,000 question that many people would probably want to know, for those who probably never heard of you or have heard of you, because my dad was a season ticket holder from the very beginning, and he got to see you play a handful of times. But I guess the $1,000,000 question is, to start off, is where did you get your start in playing hockey?
I grew up in a small rural community in Manitoba, the province of Manitoba, and just outside of Brandon. It's about 100 miles from Winnipeg, straight west of Winnipeg, and it was a little farming community. The population of the town that where our farm was closest to was about 100 people, and so that's where I grew up. I grew up on the farm, and I guess some of my earliest memories of hockey are of this is pre-television. This is 1952. I was born in 48. So 52, 53, I remember listening to hockey games on the radio because we didn't have TV at the time. Because my uncle was playing with the Detroit Red Wings at the time. With he played with them 49, 50. He played with them 3 or 4 years. They won the Stanley Cup in 49, 50. And that's, I think, where I originally got my love of hockey was, following him. He's my mother's brother. They emigrated from Ireland, he and the family and 6 kids back in 1926. If you can imagine. Can you imagine coming across from Ireland to North America on a ship at that time with that technology or whatever, with 6 kids? The oldest was my mother at 13. So 6 kids under the age of 13 on a ship crossing the Atlantic to a country totally unknown or whatever. Sorry, I'm getting off topic here.
Yeah.
Oh, that's all right. Yeah, my family immigrated from Ireland too, but they flew into National Airport, which is now JFK, with 2 kids from Ireland.
Yeah. What year was that?
That would probably be late 50s.
Yeah. So that was you were one of the
No, I was not one of the kids.
no.
No,
That's,
I was born
you
here
said
in the
that's
United States. I'm only like 2nd generation American.
okay. Anyway, you were asking where I grew. You know, like when I think back on where I grew up, and you know, compare it with hockey or associate it with hockey, that's a picture that comes to my mind is, you know, sitting in our old living room in our little old house with the radio on, listening to you know, NHL hockey games, and I think that's where I got my interest in the game, in the sport, because I started playing as soon as I could, and I just loved playing. We did, you know, we had a sort of an A-frame shed was our arena in our little town. It was a couple miles away, and it didn't have. There was no such thing as artificial ice in that little rink, so my season was very short. You know, it would start at freeze up when, you know, the ice would freeze because it had to freeze on its own, and that could sometimes that would be into November, and in March it's starting to melt again. So we had a, you know, maybe a 5-month hockey season, I guess at the longest. And you look at kids today, they skate all year round. There's artificial ice everywhere. So we, you know, that was our season, was 5 months or however long the ice would stay frozen naturally.
Yeah. As long as it was cold, that's all that mattered, didn't it?
Yeah.
Well, before I get into my first like serious question, I had a not so serious question. Do people ever confuse you with the golfer Phil Mikkelson?
Oh God.
No. The only thing we have in common is I'm a lefty as well.
See, there we go.
I remember when I first heard his name, I was at our house in Regina, I think it was, and the TV was on in the background, and I heard Phil Mikkelson, and I was saying, well, what is this? Because it sounded like Bill Mikkelson, right?
Mm-hmm.
So that was my first, the first time I heard his name, and no, I'm not confused with him. And if you ever saw me when I played golf, you would never confuse me with Phil.
Oh, okay. But I guess the first question I would have is, you played for the Wheat Kings across 3 different leagues in 3 different years.
Yes.
Did the style of play or the intensity of the rivalries change much as the team moved around?
I would say in the 3rd year, yes. The first 2 years, one year was in the Manitoba Junior League, and we had a strong team that was very dominant. We had some very good players. We played in the Saskatchewan League, and then the 3rd year that I played in Brandon, we were in the Western Hockey League. And you know, there was much more parity there, tougher teams. So we had some tough competition there. But the style was pretty much the same. You know, I don't remember any difference between any of them, but you know, the competition it got tougher each year. And then after my 3 years in Brandon, you'll notice I went into Winnipeg and played with the Junior Jets. This is just before World Hockey came along. I played 2 years with them. Brandon and Winnipeg had made a trade, and the player who was supposed to go to Winnipeg did not report. So the coach in Winnipeg wanted me to, you know, substitute me in that trade, which they eventually did. So, yeah, and those were 2 good years of competition as well. Am I answering your question, David?
Oh, yeah.
Yeah.
Definitely.
Yeah, it sounds about right. I mean, it's the best way you can answer, you know? I mean, it's always about honesty, Bill. You know what I mean?
What's that?
It's always about honesty.
Yes, absolutely. And you'll get honesty from me.
Yeah, I would say that was probably some of the most confusing times in hockey, with the leagues that were, you know, coming to, leagues that were folding, just everything moving around back then. And
Yeah.
then, the WHL coming in around, that time also. So,
Yeah. Which was great for hockey in Western Canada, that Western Hockey League, when they got it going. It really expanded, and it brought all the good players onto, into teams in more major cities than, the separate little, provincial leagues or whatever. To have a league that encompassed all of Western Canada the way it is today, was very good for hockey.
Absolutely. And you know what's funny too, Bill, is that from when you were playing in those earlier years in the early 60s compared to like now, the game has just changed so drastically because the kids are younger, they're faster and stronger. I mean, they're like you were saying it earlier that the players are starting to train every day compared to when you were playing. It
Yeah.
was basically 5 months of the year of just pure ice and in the backyard and the rinks and all that stuff. But these kids are just relentless these days, and a lot of them. And if you notice, a lot of players that come from like the Western Hockey League or the Ontario League or any of those leagues, Quebec majors, a lot of these kids are quote unquote phenoms, and I feel like that word gets overused a lot. But do you feel from when you were playing has the same aura as to like now, or do you think it's changed like rapidly, like in terms of the game?
I think it's just a drastic change. It's, night and day, in my mind, from when I played, and I think and from when my son played, like, which is going back not that far, but then going back to my era, and then going back to my uncle's era when he played. Back when, in the 50s, if you took the average height and weight of a NHL hockey team, you'd probably find it would be 5'7", 5'8", and 170 pounds. My uncle was 5'7", I think, and about 170 or 180. He was like a little, bowling ball, like a tank.
so basically like Shabanoff on today's team.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
Or sure.
yeah. And then when you come to my era, the size of players and, whatever went up another notch. I think I've got a program of a game between the Islanders and the Red Wings, and it's got the heights and the weights of all the players on it. And I took the Detroit Red Wings and averaged their heights and weights, and I think they came out to like 5'10", 5'10 and a half, and 180 pounds. And the Islanders were, about the same if you went back and checked that out. And then you look, like when my son played, and I think the players I think it's gone down a bit, mostly because we don't have those big 6'5", third pairing defensemen anymore. We've got the, like third pairing defensemen now are quick little guys for the most part. And they're puck movers. Whereas in my era and my son's, when he played, third pairing guys, it was off the glass and out, right? Don't try to carry the puck because you're not able to. But so, and I think, and I looked at some teams, when my son was playing, and the average height and weight was about 6'1", 6'1 and a half, I think it was 6'1", and 195, 200. So you see from the three eras, from when my uncle played in the 50s to when I played to the current player, there's been a dramatic change in size of the hockey player. And along with that, like you were just saying, Bob, the conditioning, the technology of conditioning, nutrition is another thing that's important. The equipment that the players use today as compared to what we had, the sticks, like I had a straight blade wooden stick, you could not bend the shaft on that stick. And so compare that to the whipping action they get today, and they shoot at 100 miles an hour. We were nothing like that. And same with the goaltending. It is all aspects of it. The understanding of physical conditioning, the weightlifting, the work players put in during the season. Like both my daughter and my son, they went at it 12 months out of the year, all year round. When I played, and you'll know back from stories, when the season was over, players went back to their hometowns. They played golf, drank beer all summer, and you go to training camp for a month to get in shape. Now, teams, They start exhibition games the second or third day of training camp. So you have to go to camp in shape, in top shape as well, especially if you're a bubble player like I was and you want to crack the lineup. You have to go there ready to play. And there's not a lot of those guys. Most teams are set on day one of training camp, like who the NHL team will be. There's maybe 3 or 4, openings on a team, or places where if somebody really stands out that they could crack the lineup. But other than that, the teams are pretty much set. Back in my day, not quite so much. But still, players were ranked and you had to crack the lineup.
So, in other words, players back in your time when you were playing were more using training camp as to kind of get the chalupa off their system, as to compared to today, where you're expected and have a certain high of demand in terms of health and durability and consistent, workouts and things like that. So it's so night and day from what it sounds like.
Yes. And training camps back then were a month in length, and now they're much shorter. And a lot of that has to do with the bargaining in the Players Association. Back in my day, we were on the ice, twice a day for an hour and a half each session. And on a few of the teams too, they had you up in the morning in the dark doing calisthenics. One of the LA Kings, I remember that out in Victoria. We're out on the wet grass in the dark, freezing or whatever, and doing calisthenics and all that kind of stuff. You go back to the hotel, and then you'd walk a mile to the arena on the ice for an hour and a half. You'd walk back to the hotel another mile. You'd try to catch a few minutes sleep, and then you'd back down to the arena again, another hour and a half on the ice, and then after that into the bar. Replace the fluids.
God damn, it's a lot of work.
It was. But today, and the purpose of training camp today is to, I guess, just to get the players in game condition, because they're going to start the season rather quickly. Back in my day, training camp, the first 2 weeks of it, there were no games, and it was just slugging it out, conditioning. They don't do that at camps today. You're expected to come into camp ready to go, day one. You have to be, because you're going to play a fast-paced, hard-hitting game on the second or third day of camp.
Mm-hmm.
There you go.
So what did you end up doing when you weren't playing hockey back then?
I think the same as everybody else. I went back to Winnipeg. I had, if I went back even further, talking about that trade earlier, I had played the 3 years with the Wheat Kings. And that trade had happened. I moved into Winnipeg to go to university because I had retired after my 3 years in Brandon. I belonged to the Rangers because that was the year before the draft. So I was never drafted. I was pre-draft. The Brandon Wheat Kings, along with the Kitchener Rangers, were Ranger affiliated junior teams. That's the way it worked back then. So just by the fact that I played in Brandon with the Wheat Kings meant I belonged to the New York Rangers. So after my 3 years in Brandon, I went to the Rangers camp. I went to their camp from the dorm at the University of Manitoba because I had retired. I was going back to university. I was going to Brandon University at the time. I went into Winnipeg to take commerce at the University of Manitoba. I moved into the dorm at the university, and I went to the Rangers training camp from the dorm, thinking I'll go to the camp. I'm not going to make the team. I said I might stay if I turn pro. If they turn me pro, maybe I'll stay. But the intent was I'll go to camp, spend a week there, have a nice experience, and then come back to the dorm and continue on with my life outside of hockey. So I went to the camp, and after about a week, back then the Rangers farm teams were in Omaha and Buffalo, right? And I went to the camp, and they had New Haven in the Eastern League. Was the Rangers, Eastern League team, and the East Coast League was a tough fighting kind of league, if you're familiar with it. And I wasn't going to play there. I would go back to university. That's where Emil Francis wanted me to go. Was go play in New Haven. and then, hone your skills there and we'll turn you pro next year. And I said, no, I'm not, I'm going back to school. You're not going to turn me pro. I'm done. So I left camp, like rather than be assigned to that team, I left to the camp, went back to the dorm and carried on as a citizen, no longer as an athlete or as a hockey player.
Right.
But that's when the reason I kept playing, I'm sorry if I'm running on here.
No, it's fine.
The reason I kept playing was that the coach who was in Winnipeg at the time, Eddie Dorahoy, who was a long 20-year career in the Western Hockey League, where all the old guys were at that time, had moved from Brandon into Winnipeg to coach the junior Jets. And he had been my coach too in Brandon. So when the Brandon player didn't report to Winnipeg, he wanted me, knowing I was in Winnipeg, to come and fill that empty slot in the trade. So he kept phoning me at the university, at the dorm, trying to convince me to come out. And I continued to say no. And at the time, I had no money. I had zero money. And eventually, Benny Haskins, who was the owner of the junior team there, offered me enough that I couldn't say no. So I went out and ended up playing 2 years with the Winnipeg Junior Jets in the Western Hockey League. So I played 5 years as junior. And the Rangers ended up dropping me off their list. LA put me on their list. And so the next couple of years, I went to the LA Kings training camp.
It's funny. As I was actually going to say and I don't mean to cut you off, but I was going to say is that I actually had a question lined up about your time at the University of Minnesota. And I was going to ask you, what made you want to come out of retirement? Because you quote unquote retired after playing 3 years at Brandon, and then you kind of retired, then you came back and you're like, you know what? I'm going to just take this opportunity because I will never say no to extra money.
No. Well, I had none. And the junior teams at that time would provide you, they'd pay for your tuition, they'd pay for your books and admin fees and all that kind of stuff. And they'd give you spending money. Like, it's pocket money. It's not significant, but it was something. And my family was not, well-to-do or rich or anything like that. So I was low on cash, and this was a benefit. And yeah, I guess I probably had in the back of my mind, well, you never know, I might get better and I might improve, and maybe somebody will want me down the line. And eventually, I guess somebody did.
Yeah, of course. There's always a way to anything at that point. But
Yeah.
You know what? At that time, I am glad that you sticked around, because there was somebody out there, which we'll get to later, that gave you an opportunity. So
Yeah.
let's call it at that,
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. That's so important for bubble players, players on the fringe, that they have somebody who likes them and who will be their champion, right? Mm-hmm. The good players are going to be there regardless. They're there just because of they're better than anybody else. But bubble players, you can take this guy or this guy, and there's not that much difference between them. This guy might help us more, but maybe that guy, maybe we like that guy. So you need a champion to be on your side and promote you. And that's so important for the players who are on the fringe.
Mm-hmm. I mean, you already talked about playing with the junior Winnipeg Jets. But by the time you finished your final junior season with the Winnipeg Jets in 1970, you had nearly 40 points as a defenseman.
Yeah.
Did you feel your offensive game was ready for the pro level, or did you see yourself primarily as a stay-at-home defender even then?
I think in junior I saw myself more, not more, but probably equally inept or whatever, able both defensively and offensively. I did take pride, in being a good defensive player, and when you get to play on the power play, points will come. But I didn't have a great shot. I was a good skater, I thought. No booming shot or whatever, and so I had a couple good years there. 40 points was a lot for me, and I never was able to replicate that in the pros, as you've probably seen as well. Didn't carry over for some reason.
Some players are not meant to be, I guess.
Yep.
No, but You know what though? Because we spend a lot of time on the juniors, so I figured let's crank it up a little bit. Let's go up to the top to the NHL, and at that point you were already in the league. I think it was 66, 67, somewhere in there with the Kings, and you often talked about your first ever game, and I believe it was in the old Maple Leaf Gardens against the Toronto Maple Leafs with the likes of Dave Keon and all those guys. And
Yeah.
I didn't want to bring up your plus minus rating because that would have just been embarrassing, and I didn't want to rub it in. But I figured the second best option was Dave Keon. So in that specific moment, if you happen to remember, how did that moment, which I'm referring to the interception against the Leafs, how did that moment affect your confidence as a young defenseman trying to stick into the lineup at that time?
I should say before I answer that, I have no problems talking about my plus minus whatsoever.
I wouldn't. You're in the Hockey Hall of Fame for it.
I don't know about that. There's probably another word for the hall that I'm in rather than fame.
Yeah, a cult legend. We'll put you it that way.
Yeah. No, I've actually enjoyed it over the years because I've had a lot of media attention because of it. I've had a lot of sports guys call me and that do columns on it and everything else. And like in business, I worked for IBM for a number of years, and all the guys that I worked with all knew about my plus minus record, and they kidded me all the time about it. So I've taken a lot of abuse about it over the years, and I don't mind it at all. And my perspective is I'm just happy to have it, because if I didn't have it, I wouldn't have got to play in the NHL. Playing in the show, I would take take that plus minus stain or whatever you want to call it on my career. I don't care. It doesn't matter. I was just happy to be there. I used to, something interesting too, I used to tell my kids when they were playing minor hockey that, some kids they'd played with knew about my record, I guess. And I told them that, if any kids give you any grief about me and my plus minus, just ask them, well, what was your dad's plus minus when he played? And that shut them up because their dad didn't play. And that ended that.
Well, they always throw it around like unbeatable records. I think your plus minus will actually be an unbeatable record. I don't think anybody's going to come close to that. So I think that's something that you'll always have.
Yeah, I'll go to my grave with it, and I'm good with that.
God damn.
I don't mind it all. Like I guess you could say that. Plus minus, there's a lot of debate about it, as a good statistic, because it's a reflection of your teammates as well, right?
Mm-hmm.
And I want to say that, my plus minus, it's on me as well, but it's also on the guys I played with. Mm-hmm. And I can think of a few instances where I was the victim, right? But who cares?
Right.
So, what do you think your Corsi would have been? Because that's the hot new thing now that everybody's talking about.
The Corsi is shots for and against, or shots. Mm-hmm. Shots missed, shots blocked, all that stuff. Mm-hmm. We were rarely in the offensive end of the rink, so my Corsi, I wouldn't want to know.
Well, I was going to say, isn't Corsi like a goaltending stat based off of Jim Corsi, who I believe, if I'm not mistaken, was the goaltending coach for the Buffalo Sabres, if I'm not mistaken?
Well, you are right about that, but the Corsi doesn't have anything to do with goaltending.
No, it's a shots thing, if I recall. Yeah. Now you asked, I got off topic there. Wow, yeah. What was the question you asked me?
It was about
Keon. Right?
Yeah, it was about Dave Keon. Yeah.
Yes. I don't remember it having any impact on me at all. It was. I had been called up from Springfield to the LA Kings. I reported to Toronto from Springfield, met the team there, and I was just in awe playing in Maple Leaf Gardens and playing against the players on that team, the Dave Keons and Ron Ellis's and all those guys, just in awe, because I'd watched them, of course, for years, on TV and whatever. And playing against all these guys out on the ice, it was an experience. It happened. I was playing with Jean Potvin. He was my partner when that happened. And I tried to pass. I was just, like inside our blue line maybe, and I tried to pass it across to him. And it sort of fluttered off my stick and sort of went into the middle of the ice between Jean and I. Keon swooped in, picked it up, and, put it top corner. So how embarrassing. This game was on national TV in Canada too. And there I am. So you sort of want to go back to the bench and, crawl under it.
Yeah. That's all right. That's not your fault. The Islanders never play well on national TV.
Oh my God.
So yeah, that wasn't a pleasant experience, and it's one that there's not many things that I remember from my playing days, but I've still got a vivid picture in my mind of what happened on that goal. The rest of them, I don't remember any of them hardly.
So it's kind of like just like a blank memory in your head at that point.
Mm-hmm.
Well, yeah, with the exception of that one, and there's my first goal of the very few that I scored. I still have a picture of it. I remember it somewhat, but most of it is it's I don't remember much. It's 50 some years ago now, right? Since I was playing, and I don't profess to ever have had a good memory. So, and the other thing is too, I haven't been around. You're able to recall things if you talk about them frequently. And, I spent 25 years with IBM with guys who, they're sports fans and everything. And they're not fellow hockey players where you talk about things that you did and, that you'll talk about year after year after year. And you keep refreshing your memory. All this stuff, I never talked about this stuff. I never talked about hockey. The guys, we talk business, we talk other stuff. So any memories I have from hockey are rare, and they are instances like the ones I just described that stand out. But just your run-of-the-mill hockey game from back then, I don't remember. The other thing that I'll mention that is really sad is that there is no video from games in the 70s when I played. So I can't go back and watch myself play. I was able to through Stan Fischler. He put me in touch with a fellow who has there's a fellow in Toronto as well who have access to video, hockey video replays or whatever from back in that era, and there's nothing. They did find a couple. I've got a clip of playing with the Islanders against a shift against the Montreal Canadiens in Montreal. I've got another shift playing on the island against the Detroit Red Wings, and it's the first shift of the second period. But other than that, and there's another one against Boston. But other than that, I've got no video of myself. So I had never seen myself skate until I got those two video clips. I had no idea what I looked like on the ice, and I still really don't have much of a clue either. How I appeared, my skating style and stuff like that is just, I have no clue. There was no TV playing junior. There was no videos or anything from those days. And I understand what they did in the NHL at that time was they would write over. They would record a game, for TV or whatever, but the next game they would just write over that recording. Like the old VHS tapes, you can tape over again. That's what they were doing. So there's nothing. And it's so, my kids haven't seen me play. They know I played because they could see the record. But other than that, there's nothing.
I mean, it could have been worse, Bill. I mean, if it was if memes were a thing in the 70s when you were playing, I think the media would be a lot harder on you back then than they would be now, considering if you make any sort of mistake in any NHL game, and I'm sure you've seen it before, the infamous clip of Patrick Stefan when he played for the Dallas Stars, he's going into the crease. I believe they were playing Edmonton, and this was 20 years ago. He's going into the crease, and the Oilers have an empty net. and he misses the shot and he falls on his ass. And the next thing you know, an Oilers player picks up the puck, goes down to the other end of the ice, it scores the tying goal, and they win it in overtime. And
I remember that. I remember that.
And people just went berserk on him. And that is just hockey immortality of mediocrity at that point. And that's no discretion towards you or anything, but it's more like, I would say, and again, if memes were a big thing in the 70s, I think people would be a lot harder on you. But I think for reference, just because it was in the record books, I think people could just read that statistic and be like, it wasn't his fault. It wasn't his fault.
Well, it was my fault, to be truthful, but it was also the fault of the other guys that I was on the ice with, because every goal against, and if you want to talk about a goal against, we can talk about the game-winning goal in the Olympics and talk about mistakes that are made by all the guys on the ice, right?
Right.
On that the winning goal in overtime, but it's a reflection of the players, and it's also of your team. And when you consider that that Islander team we had, we would go into Montreal, and the Montreal team, you can go and check the lineup of the Montreal team that we played against. And if you look up that lineup, there's something like 9 or 10 players, maybe 11, that are in the Hockey Hall of Fame, right?
Yeah.
Guy Lafleur, Ken Dryden, they had the big three on defense, right? Robinson, Savard, Lapointe, players like that. And here we're back in the expansion drafts, and I think the NHL teams could each protect 15 players. So you were getting players off the NHL teams that were, at least the 16th best player on the team, not considered valuable. And along with a mixture of, with the Islanders that year, they drafted Billy Harris. They got Billy Smith that year too from LA. But other than that, you had, maybe some younger guys playing in the AHL that they thought had promise, such as myself. And that was also the year that of the Islander draft that World Hockey came along. And World Hockey took a few of the players that the Islanders had drafted, and they absconded to the WHA.
Wow. Yeah. But you know what, though? I think at the end of the day, when you think about all that stuff, because you just mentioned up the expansion draft briefly, I'm going to let Damian ask you this question because I think it's only fair because it is an interesting question.
So when you were left unprotected for the 72 expansion draft, did you see it as a disappointment to leave LA, or did you view the New York Islanders as a better opportunity for a young defenseman to get top pairing minutes?
I don't know about. I don't think I had any real feelings either way in that regard. I was I was happy to be drafted by the Islanders. I was quite excited about it. And at the time, I had an agent, Don Baisley in Winnipeg, who was talking to both the Winnipeg Jets expansion team, because I was living in Winnipeg and I had just played there for 2 years. So the management and whatever in Winnipeg were very familiar with me. And so whether, I had a decision to make when I was drafted by the Islanders as to whether I wanted to play in the WHA. If I could have made the Jets, I don't know. And I didn't know whether I would make the Islanders, but eventually the Islanders offered me a 2-year contract that I signed. And also on the other side of it too, I was happy to go to New York. I had grown up, idolizing and worshiping the NHL and NHL players. And it was always a goal, I think, for any Canadian kid to play in the NHL. The WHA, although Winnipeg had signed Bobby Hull to a contract that summer, gave some legitimacy to the league and certainly to the Winnipeg Jets. And so I was talking to them and the Islanders. The Islanders offered me a contract. I thought it would be just great to go and live in New York, one of the greatest cities in the world. And rather than just staying at home in Winnipeg, living the same old life and everything, to go to the Big Apple was very appealing. And so that's how I chose the Islanders, and I'm glad I did. I still consider it one of the best years of my life. I really enjoyed the team. I enjoyed Long Island, just about everything about it. We had a tough year, but again, playing in the show is everything. Like, who cares? Who cares if we had a tough time? But I was going back to the point when I was talking about the Montreal Canadiens. I'm sorry, I'm all over the place here.
No, don't worry about it.
Yeah, back to, they had 9-10 Hall of Famers on their team, and we had the players that I was describing, guys that were rejects and whatever. What did people expect when we went into Montreal that we weren't going to get pasted? And we did. We had games, 8-1, 9-1, 10-0 or whatever. Same when we went to Boston. We did win a game in Boston, believe it or not. And Philadelphia, we got spanked there too. So when you lose games 8, 9, 10, 1, you're going to get big minuses, big, like 4 and 5 in a game. I went back and looked at some of mine, and I think 50 some of my minuses came in 10 games or 10 or 15 games out of the season. The rest of the time I was, like -1 or even or +1 or whatever. But just those blowouts just really do you in on your plus minus. And, like, what are you going to do against a lineup like Montreal had at the time? Guys like us. The other thing is that back in that day, if you look at some of the lineups, we played with 4 defensemen a lot of the time. And at the most 5. We did not play with 6 that I can recall. So a lot of games, you'll only see 4 defensemen on the lineup on the score sheet. Some of them you'll see 5. The year I was there, Eddie Westfall played a bit on the blue line. Ron Stewart played a bit, but not that much. But for the most part, I played a lot of minutes too.
Yeah, that's a lot of minutes.
Yeah. Especially you get guys with fighting majors and things like that. Now you're down to 3 or maybe 4. And you're in Montreal playing against these guys that are just so good. Like, what do you expect?
I mean,
help me with that.
Because God forbid one defenseman goes down and you're in deep shit at that point.
Yeah, no kidding. So now you look at Tampa Bay, they're dressing 7 guys every game. Canada dressed 7 guys, 7 defensemen in the gold medal game.
Yep.
I think the U.S. might have just had 6. I'm not sure. But I know Canada dressed 7 and they all got minutes.
Yeah.
So when you're playing that amount of minutes and, depending, I guess, on your conditioning, you could be playing 30 minutes a game, 25 to 30.
Yeah, that's for certain. But I was going to say something else about your time in Long Island because, I was going to ask you before and then so on. Was like, do you have a fond memory before I get to my next question? Do you have a fond memory about your time in Long Island? Like, did you like going to Jones Beach or did you enjoy the food there? Like, what was it about Long Island that you enjoyed?
First of all, it's the experience of playing in the NHL. And I guess the Nassau Coliseum was brand new at the time. I like Long Island. It's sort of got a New England feel to it. I lived in a nice house in the suburbs with Lorne Henning and Ralph Stewart, 2 great guys. So we had a lot of fun. The only thing that wasn't fun that year, and I know in another conversation that I'd had, regarding my time with the Islanders, was the fact that we weren't able to practice at the Coliseum. So we had to practice way out. I think it was called King's. It was King's facility, but it was a rink that was way out on Long Island. And when I lived, where I lived in Long Island was in Syosset. East Norwich, that area. So we would drive down to the old Nassau Coliseum and then dress in our dressing room at the Coliseum. Everybody get on a bus, like a bunch of, minor league hockey players with our sticks and our skates, over our shoulders, get on the bus, travel an hour out onto Long Island, practice for an hour and a half, all sweaty and everything, get on the bus back to the Coliseum, shower, dress, and go home. Those were
and these new players were bitching about having to play in Brooklyn and the travel, and look what you guys had to do.
Oh yeah. I didn't know they were complaining about that, but I'll tell you, it was those were long days. You'd almost look forward to a game day so you didn't have to go through that ordeal.
Wow, damn. How about them apples? But so I was gonna ask you before is that when obviously the late Bill Torrey, the great GM for the Islanders, because he was the inaugural guy that started it all, Bill Torrey clearly saw you as a cornerstone for the defense when he picked you from the expansion draft from the LA Kings. Did you feel the weight of being a franchise building defenseman during that first training camp when you were in Petersburg?
Well, Bob, let me tell you, that's the first time I've ever heard that.
Really?
Yeah, I've never heard that. That when Bill Torrey drafted me, he considered me that I would be a cornerstone. I've never heard that.
I do a lot of research.
Can you send me that? Because I'd like to frame it up on my wall here, okay?
Absolutely. I if I could find it, I'd be happy to email it to you.
Yeah, no, I can't answer that question, obviously, because I was not aware.
Okay.
But I guess what I could comment from that was I did not turn out to be a cornerstone, so I was probably a disappointment to Mr. Torrey.
Nope, Torrey was never wrong. Never wrong.
Yeah.
Well, I remember like the players on the team too. Going back to your other question about things I remember, there were some characters on the team that were sort of fun to be around. Like jokesters or whatever, comedians. So it was an interesting group of players like Brian Spencer, Spinner Spencer. Yeah, Eddie Westfall was a character. Terry Crisp was another one. Yeah, there was a lot of guys on that team that made life bearable, I guess, during all the losing we were going through. They kept things light, and I think everybody knew like how I described the situation we were in and the competition that we had and how tough it was for us, that people understood. The players, we'd go out and do our best, but our best was just not even close to good enough. Phil Goyette was a coach at the time, and he was a really good guy. And he would congratulate us if we would just come close in games. If we would lose to a team 3-2, 4-2, or whatever, they'd be very happy with that result. And I often thought that, like somebody should have been a little tougher on us. Like even though we were hapless, as we were called in a book that was written recently by Greg Prado, The Hapless Islanders, even though we were, I still think we should have been treated a little more roughly. Coming close is never acceptable, even as bad as we would.
I mean, I get that perspective, but it's like, I mean, I get what you're saying as far as like the players stick around and you're kind of just trying to do your best, but it was not clearly working at that time. And obviously things have changed for a while for you and just starting to get into adapting and all that stuff. You know what I mean? Like you're just there to play the game.
Yes. Yeah. Yeah, it's pretty basic. It's pretty straightforward.
Yeah, it is.
Well, speaking of playing the game, the Islanders played their first ever game against the Atlanta Flames. You were on the ice for that historic moment. What was the energy like in Nassau Coliseum that first night? And were you guys basically like in survival mode, just trying to get through that game?
What was the score in that game?
Oh,
that'd be good.
I wasn't alive, so I can't say.
I can tell you games that I do remember. That one I don't, but I do. The game that stands out most to me was the first time we played the Rangers at Nassau Coliseum, because we felt like we were in a road rink rather than our home rink. Because when the Rangers came out for warm up and they came out for the game, I think they got a standing ovation from our crowd, from our fans, because these were the Nassau or the Islander fans. I think at the time were all, former or continue to be Ranger fans. And so they were coming to our games now, but they were still Ranger fans. So they were ecstatic to see their Rangers. They probably couldn't get in to see their games at the time because they'd be sold out, but they could get into Nassau Coliseum easily. And they got a standing ovation. And I'm sure the rest of the players felt the same way. We were shocked to have our fans cheering that hard for the visiting team. So I remember that one. The other one,
you guys did pretty good in that first game. You only lost 3-2 to the Atlanta Flames.
3-2. Yep, good.
Yeah. What were you gonna say, Bill? We apologize.
Yeah, they had a little. I don't know whether the situation was they ended up having a better year than we did. Both supposedly should have been equal. From the drafting perspective, I don't know whether they lost as many players to the World Hockey as the Islanders did, but yeah, they had a better season than we did.
Well, I mean, didn't they go to the Cup that year in '72?
Who won it?
The Rangers.
Did the Rangers win it? Or?
No. Well, I mean, what I'm asking is, I remember the Islanders were really bad that year because obviously you were part of that team, but like the Rangers were at the top at that time. Like I think they lost to Boston, if I'm not mistaken.
Could be. I don't remember. I have known, but I'd have to go back and look at it again. I don't remember.
The Boston Bruins beat the Rangers in '72.
Is that right? Yeah. 72, 73.
72.
Yeah. So, because our Stanley Cup for our year, 72, 73 would have been the 73 Stanley Cup.
Yeah. Because what I was going to say just a second ago is that my dad was, as I was saying it earlier before we got on the show, was my dad was a season ticket holder for 35 years with the Islanders, and he got to see you guys play in those early years, and he was at the first ever game. I don't really remember what he said, like what aisle he was in, because he had season tickets, and he went to the first ever game against the Rangers, and I remember a comment he made to me several months ago, and he said, I remember going to the game at the Coliseum when I was about your age, and he's referring to himself as a 20-year-old at that time. So he's at the Coliseum, he's watching the Rangers, and they blow you guys out. And they were just laughing at the background, just arrogantly and narcissistically. And then it was just like, you know what? We're never taking this shit again. And then from like 75 on there on out, it was just that infamous goal from J.P. Parise, the late J.P. Parise, scores the overtime winner at Madison Square Garden. And from there, it was just this historic rivalry that it got to that boiling point where it's like both teams are just like deadlocked to championships or deadlocked in like historic events and things like that.
Yeah. So your dad was at that game I just described, where the Rangers got the all the attention and the ovation and everything when they came out.
My dad was at that game. He used to tell me stories when I was a kid, and he said one of those games was against the Rangers, and the first time they came and they got that ovation, and on the bench they were just laughing because of how bad you guys were at that time. I mean, I get it, you were an expansion team, and expansion teams don't do very well, but it's like the Rangers were just mocking you guys at that time. And my dad said to me, was like, I remember seeing like Bill Mikkelson, John Potvin, and all those guys, Billy Smith when he got traded from the Kings, and he was like in the front row, if I'm not mistaken. I have to ask him. And then he was just like, ever since that day, I've hated the Rangers. I will never stop hating the Rangers as long as I'm fucking alive on this planet.
Good for him.
Absolutely. Like he despises the Rangers. There's no question about that.
That's good. I'm glad to hear it.
Yeah. But speaking of Jean Potvin, because you two were a duo for a while, you and Jean Potvin seem to follow each other pretty, well, even from back in LA and obviously with the Islanders. How much did having a familiar face on the blue line help you out navigate the chaos of an expansion season like in New York?
I don't know. That's a tough question. It's hard to say. But Jean Potvin, he came to the Islanders as bait. I think he referred to himself as the bait to attract Denny to the island, right? And he came there late in the season. I played with him the whole year in Springfield in the American League when we won the Calder Trophy. Butch Goring was on that team. Billy Smith was the goalie in Springfield that year. Billy Smith and Butch just were far and away the best players in that year in Springfield. And Jean was on that team as well. So I knew Jean. Jean was a great guy. I don't know whether you followed him later in his life. It's such a sad story that he passed away before his time. But yeah, he was a good guy, a funny guy, great guy to play with, and very talented too. Obviously, not quite what his brother was, of course, but still good in his own right. And yeah, I enjoyed playing with him. Whether he helped me out, I'm sure he did. I wouldn't debate that for a second. But yeah, no.
Yeah, that's a fair question. I mean, I get it. It's been a while since you've been playing, but it's just kind of get like a third eye opening, basically. You know what I mean? Like, it's like you don't hear stories about you very frequently. We figured we'd be the ones to kind of open the jaws up a little bit, like, open up. We want to hear what you have to say. You know what I mean? But no, it's been a blast. But we actually have 2 more questions to go. And before we get into that, Bill, we just want to say thank you so much for coming on tonight. And it's been an absolute blast having you. And you've been great. And we truly appreciate the support as well.
Oh, well, great. I'm so happy to be here. I love talking to you guys. Sports guys like you, it's, listening to your football commentary and everything else, the versions or podcasts that I've listened to are entertaining, to say the least.
Oh yeah, the Bills break my heart every year, unfortunately, and it does me no justice for my health because I've always grew up in, like, Damian's a Giants fan, but like I grew up in Jets Giants country my whole life. My dad's a Jet fan, and he wanted to endear me into a Jets fan, and I just looked at him at a young age, and I'm like, no.
So Damian, are you a Sabres fan?
No. I mean, I follow them and I'll root for them when they're not playing the Islanders, but I'm not an overly big fan. I've been here in Buffalo almost 30 years now, but I'm originally from Long Island.
Oh, you are?
Yeah.
Oh, good. Yeah. But the Sabres they've been pretty hot lately.
They've been very hot. So, like, everybody around here is jumping on the bandwagon now. So
are they? Yeah. It's been a talk about a drought. That is a drought.
Well, I feel bad for the Sabres fans because, like I said, I remember in the late 90s with the Islanders, that 7-year drought missing the playoffs, and the Sabres are double that now at 14 years. And I remember that 7 years feeling like an eternity. So I can't imagine what 14 years feels like.
Could be like being a Jets fan.
Yeah, it would be like being a Jets fan.
well, being a Jets fan in the NFL is just asking for pain.
Yeah, it is.
But Damon, I believe.
But I'll get into my last question here.
Yes.
So people forget that you were actually a very mobile, puck-moving defenseman. If you played for the 75 Canadiens instead of the 75 Capitals, how different do you think your career trajectory would have been?
I think it would have been drastically different. One of the lament I have is that, during my time playing pro, I never had a coach that was a defenseman. They were all forwards and knew little about playing defense, and I don't recall, picking up any scoops or getting coached in a way that improved my play. So I was disappointed that second year with the Islanders that I got cut because Al Arbor came in. And Al Arbor's a guy that I had watched for a long time, very good defenseman, a shot blocking defenseman. I sort of prided myself on, shot blocking as well. But I would have loved to have played for Al for a year to see what he could have done with me. Because I was a good skater. I think my hockey sense was probably questionable, but my skating, I I could skate with anybody. But I just wonder if I had had coaching. I know it sounds like I'm trying to come up with some excuses here now why I wasn't better or had a better career than I did, but that might be one of them. I don't know whether I'm answering your question or not.
Oh no. Well, if you go by the top 3 defensemen on the team that year, the Canadians, they had Guy Lapointe, Serge Savard, and Larry Robinson.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
If I had been
that 4th defenseman.
Yeah, if I had been the 4th defenseman playing with one of those guys, I probably would be very good. I wouldn't have had, playing on that team, I wouldn't have had the plus minus that I had, obviously. The one year there was an article, Bobby Orr that year, the year that I was minus 81 or 82 in Washington, he was like plus 81 or 82. And, I often thought of that. If I had been Bobby Orr's partner that year, I would have been plus, like something stupid like 50 or 60. Mm-hmm. The year before I went to Washington, I was plus 44 in the American League, right? So I wasn't that bad. Mm-hmm. But so it comes back to, it depends a lot on who you play with. If I had been playing with Bobby Orr, of course I would have been a plus. And the guys like Esposito, Hodge, Cashman, filling the net all the time, I would have been on for all those pluses. That the other aspect of plus minus is not necessarily the negative, like the goals against, is that you don't have any goals for. You get beat by going to Montreal 10-1. There's only one plus available, and we might have scored that goal on a power play, so there were no pluses to be had. And people don't look at that aspect of the plus minus stat, is that you have to have goals for to balance off your goals against. And we didn't score any goals. We spent all our time in our end. You can't score from your own end.
Right. I mean, it's a good, valid argument, because a lot of times you could be playing with a two-pair defenseman, whether it's an offensive defenseman or a stay-at-home defenseman. The plus-minus ratio, it can be going both ways. It can either be the best possible excuse for a statistic or the worst possible excuse for a statistic. Yeah. Because I think for any player at that stage, it could go both ways.
Yes. Yeah, that's right.
So, I mean, I guess that's the better format, I guess you could say, from that retrospective, But so my last question to you, Bill, and once again, we want to thank you for coming on tonight. But in 2013, you were rightfully inducted into the Manitoba Hockey Hall of Fame, and that alone cemented your status as not just a statistical curiosity, but more as an honored member of the hockey community in your home province. How much pride and honor do you take as far as that being part of your legacy?
Well, a tremendous amount. That was incredible. Getting into a Hall of Fame is an achievement, I guess, and regardless of how people might have viewed some, my statistics or whatever, I guess they must have overlooked some of that stuff and looked at the whole picture. And like I had a good junior career, both in Brandon and in Winnipeg with the junior Jets, and 7 or 8 year professional career. I guess that was enough to warrant me getting there, and I was tremendously honored by it. All my buddies at the time came out to the Hall of Fame dinner that they had, and we had a fun evening in Winnipeg that night. I was tremendously honored. My daughter, a couple of years ago, was inducted into the University of Wisconsin's Sports Hall of Fame, which is a bigger deal than just being in a specific sport, because she was in with all the great Wisconsin athletes from all the college sports. So
we didn't really get into your daughter too much, but she won gold medals in 2010, 2014, a silver in 2018. And is she still working for the Calgary Flames?
Yeah, she's in. When I get off here, let's see, it's 7:09. The Flames are in LA tonight, and she's doing the game on Sportsnet. So if I wasn't talking to you guys, I'd be listening to her. I'd have the game up. I'd have the game up on the TV with the TV muted, watching the play, and trying to coordinate the play with the streaming She's on Sportsnet 960, the fan.
Yes.
So when you get off, if you get onto Sportsnet 960, you'll hear her doing the color commentary along with Derek Wills of the game from LA tonight. And the game there started at 5:20 LA time. No, yeah, 5:20, 5:15 LA time. So the game will still be going on. Do you have the score from LA?
I can check for you real quick if you don't mind. Let me see.
No.
I'm going to give you a hand right here, Bill. Give me 1 minute. I got the app, so it's all working in my favor. So you said the LA Calgary game, you said, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, it's in the third period. Kings are up 1-0.
Oh, is that right?
Yeah, and it's actually here in the U.S., it's actually on an NHL network. So we actually might get the broadcast.
Yeah, but you won't get her on that broadcast. She's doing
He's on the radio.
Streaming radio on 960.
Yeah, that's pretty cool.
Yep. She did a game in Long Island a couple of years ago. Later, like a few years ago, was the same year that Anders Lee blew out his knee.
Oh my God, I remember that.
Yeah, she blew out her knee at the same time. She on TV, she watched Anders Lee and highlights or whatever. She saw him skating 3 months after his ACL injury. ACL injuries are 9 to 12 months. My son had the same thing. He blew out his ACL in junior, missed a year. But she blew her knee out. She saw him skating after 3 months and wanted to know, how is he doing this? So she asked me that, and I said, well, I'll see if I can find out if I can get, if I've got some people there who might recognize my name and get a contact and have Anders talk to Megan about what he was doing for rehab that allowed him to get back on the ice so quickly. So I talked to Kim Auerbach, I think Kimberly Auerbach. He's their director of communications or whatever, and he arranged for Anders Lee and Megan to have a phone conversation, and they did, and talked about their injuries and what they were doing, both of them, to rehab their ACL injuries. And they sort of became friends since then. And every time the Flames play the Islanders now, Megan, sees Anders, and they have a quick get together and chat and reacquaint and whatever. Same with Butch Goring. Butch Goring, doing the broadcasting. He and Megan talk all the time when the two teams play. Flames play the Islanders. She and Butch says hello and says pass it along to Bill and whatever. But that was just. I'm sorry, I'm running on again.
Oh no, that's our captain, man, the longest running captain in Islanders history.
Yeah. Is he subject to be traded?
I don't think so.
They've been talking the whole year, him and Pajot being traded. I don't think they're going to trade either one, and they shouldn't. Yeah.
Well, if he's providing, that intangible leadership in the dressing room that they're going to need down the stretch, and because they're in a playoff position now, right?
Oh yeah.
Yeah.
They're third in the Metro.
Yeah, they'll be buying rather than selling.
Oh yeah. Well, they both Pajot and Lee both scored Thursday against the Canadians, and they both scored again tonight against the Blue Jackets. So
yeah. So that's kind of a cool story for Megan. But anyway, she went to the island and did a broadcast at the new arena. I forget what the broadcast company was that she worked for when she went there. But she did some color commentary and rinkside interviews, things like that. When she went there, it was just for one game, and I think it was because of her relationship with Kim and Anders that she got that opportunity.
No, that's awesome.
Yeah,
I would legit, Bill, not to discredit anybody, I would kill my arms and legs to get Anders Lee or Butch Goring to come on the show. I would die for that.
Would you?
Oh yeah, absolutely. I mean, I'll say this real quick is that we've been trying to get people for an extended period of time to come on the show. And for spoilers, one of the people that we wanted to get on here, but he said he was coming, but he never showed up and he stood us up, was Matthew Barnaby, and we were trying to get him to come on the show, and he ghosted us for like several weeks. And it's like, you son of a bitch. I get it. He's an agitator, and that's what he does. But it's like,
I think we'll get Butch eventually when he starts slowing down. I mean, he's still got quite a busy schedule.
Yeah.
So, once he maybe steps away from a lot of his like game duties, I think he'd be willing.
Yeah. Well, I know over the winter it is, and Megan has an appreciation for what NHL players go through now with the travel, because she's got 2 young kids at home, and 6 and 10 years old, and she's away so much. Especially this year, they've had 2 or 3 like 8, 9, 10 game road trips. They got one coming up at the beginning of April. That's almost 2 weeks. And so, you're in hotels all the time, and people, I think, appreciate the toll that it takes, all that travel, time zones and living in hotels and on and on. So,
so where does she display all of her medals that she won?
She's got them at home somewhere. I'm not sure. She does a number of public appearances. She did over the Olympic break. She was down in Ottawa with some politicians, and she was up in another location, with in a community with a bunch of the people there, and she takes them there and displays them, and people try them on and everything. And
that'd be awesome to have an Olympic medal.
Yeah, she was very fortunate, very fortunate. I saw when I was in Milan, I saw 3 games. I saw the Canadians play the French team, and I saw the 2 games that the women played at both.
Yeah, there was a couple of Buffalo Olympians that won medals and gold, and I'm hoping that they'll, show them off here in Buffalo somewhere that we can go see them.
Who's that?
Tage Thompson is one.
Skumera.
Oh yeah.
I think the women's hockey team is from Buffalo, and one of the skiers, I think.
Yeah.
Also won gold.
Yeah.
So
good.
Oh, of course, Tage Thompson.
Oh yeah.
It's funny because his dad was Brent Thompson, who was an assistant coach for the Islanders for a little bit, and then he became the head coach for Bridgeport for several years, and then Tice Thompson, his younger brother, played for the Albany Devils, and then he got traded to Bridgeport a couple of years ago, and it's just funny how that family runs about it. And I wasn't really sure how Tage was going to pan out for the Sabres, and then that dude's just an animal, and I'm very happy for him that he won a gold medal finally.
Yeah,
big dude.
Yeah. No, I'm. You were commenting about Canadian fans being bitter and everything. I'm not, and people I know are not bitter. It was just great hockey, and as a hockey fan, whichever country you're in, you have to appreciate, what we saw. It was great hockey. Just fast and skill and the whole bit. I don't know how anybody could be upset, either way.
Teeth falling out of everybody's heads.
Oh yeah, I think for me, and I forgot to say this because we were briefly talking about it before the show, is that I think the big thing with Canada is a lot of people expecting them to win it, and I think it bruised their ego so much that they were like so accustomed to it being like, oh, it's Canada's game, or oh, it's our game, and especially on an international level where they work like. They basically walk around with like a sense of pride and duty that they have to consistently win gold medals every 4 years, to the point where it's like the entitlement of, oh, it's our game. And then the one time they lose to the United States, it's like that game literally broke them. It got like all the Canadian media went up like ape shit on them, and it went crazy at that point. It was just like, come on.
I just think it's social media.
Yeah. But it's social media. It could also be in the news outlets and different opinions, and it's just like it's crazy, in a sense.
Yeah, our media, our sports media in Canada, and I don't know what it's. I can't comment about the U.S. in this day and age, but I know in Canada the sports media are very liberal oriented. The reporting, and a lot of them went off the deep end with what happened after the game. As far as the game itself went, Canada did outplay them. If you scored, I was thinking if you scored the game the way you would score, a 4-minute figure skating competition, Canada would have won that if you didn't count goals, right? They would have won the display of hockey.
Yeah, like I said, USA probably got like the first period, and then the rest of the game was dominated by Canada.
Yeah.
And they should have won. McKinnon missing the empty net, the 5-on-3 failed power play, and then that crazy save on Devontae's by Hellebuck. I mean, they could have easily won the game.
Yeah. And the other thing is our 3 best players all made egregious errors on the winning goal.
Mm-hmm.
All 3 of them. And
it was a sloppy, broken play because, Jack Hughes is the hero now, but he could have been the GOAT just as easily if he didn't ship that pass. And then Canada would have went in on a 2-0 against Hellebuck. So you never know.
Yeah. What you can say was a bad decision by Cale Makar. To go after that puck unless he was sure to get it. The worst thing that could happen happened, right? He didn't get it, left a 3-on-1. McDavid was caught, and then McKinnon made a poor play on Werenski, and McDavid and Makar both loafed coming back. McDavid made the worst back-checking mistake you can imagine. He was watching the puck. He was watching what McKinnon was doing, not looking around and spotting Jack Hughes, who was wide open on the other side. That's where when McDavid came back as fast on his back check as he does when he carries the puck up the ice, he would have caught. He would have been all over Jack Hughes. There would have been no play possible. But he came back watching the puck, leaning over to the side where Werenski was, and leaving Hughes wide open. Big mistake.
Well, that's going to be like the big, $1 million question: is McDavid ever going to win anything?
Yeah,
I mean, he's obviously the best player in hockey right now. His skating is unbelievable.
Yeah,
but he just can't seem to win the big game.
Yeah, and like you could say that. At the same time, going back, we were talking about my plus minus. There's a certain onus on the guys he's playing with at the same time. Can he do much more? The other thing to consider too, you wouldn't have expected in that gold medal game for Connor Hellebuck to outscore Connor McDavid, would you?
No, I would have never expected that. And I got to say, though, Hellebuck played great in that game. But I think the thing that really snake bit Canada at that time were 2 things. And they were both regarding Nathan McKinnon, the wide open net, which could have easily gotten them the gold. And the second thing was what really bugged me was his comment after that game. He's like, well, you be the judge who was the better team that game. It's like, Nathan, shut the fuck up, take the L, and just – walk away with it and hang on to that for at least another 4 years. It's like, again, great team all around. I mean, if it weren't for the moral mistakes that Canada made, they would have easily won the gold medal. And I'm not saying the U.S. didn't deserve it because they looked like crap for like 2/3 of the game. But it's like at that point, Canada was out muscling them, out skating them, out shooting them, you name it. And it's like all these things came to fruition. Like the stars were aligning for Canada. And then it's like, there's an opportunity, and then boom, Nathan McKinnon misses the net wide open. That was the gold-winning game right there for Canada at that point. Yeah. And then he has to go out, and then he's like acting really whiny about it. It's like, come on.
Yeah.
But in all retrospective, though, Bill, we just want to say, Damian and I want to say thank you for coming on tonight. It was an absolute blast having you. And in fact, I would say it was even more of an honor to have you on tonight, considering all the odds. And then, it was just really interesting to get into your career. And we really appreciate the time coming on tonight to tell us the stories.
Well, I enjoyed it. And I appreciate your asking me. And I feel honored too. And I'll keep following you guys. Get some Islanders on. Get Butch on. That would be great.
Oh, absolutely. We would love to have
We'll keep working on them.
Yeah. Butch would have some stories too. He had a great career. as a coach, and he's, as an announcer too. I've listened to him,
Yeah.
his broadcasting, and he's good. He's good. He's good at whatever he does.
Absolutely. So I think with that being said, we're going to wrap it up for the night. And I'm your host, Buffalo Bob. That's the Great Dame. And with Bill Mikkelson, we'll talk to you guys next time, and we'll see you down the road. Bill, it was a pleasure having you again, sir.
Yeah. Great being with you guys, Bob, Damian. My pleasure.
Absolutely. Have
Thank
a good
you, Bill.
night.